Oh, hi there. I'm Tim.
Hi, I'm Trish. Nice to meet you.
You have a problem with hearing?
Yeah, I have only one hearing aid in my mistake.
Okay,
that's okay.
Turn the other side. I'll speak loud.
And I'm Mike.
Mike
Ross.
Okay,
And
nice.
your name again?
Trish Hart.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And we're starting late again today. Welcome to First Universalist on this beautiful weekend for Memorial Day. It's been a busy week. We need to find out, we'll call Cecil afterwards. I had my notes to call her Thursday and see if she wanted to pick up by Uber, and I totally forgot to do it. So we'll call Cecil. I think we're hopefully in agreement that if Cecil wants to come, we're going to provide a way for her to get here. And we'll Uber her up, and then we can take turns taking her home or Uber her back, depending on how we're doing there. Do we have any announcements?
Just a couple. I received, I think I shared with you before, at a social function in Dayton, I had met Bill Ross, who attends the Miami Valley UU Fellowship. And I think I shared with you that what we had heard in terms of news of Miami Valley moving to downtown Dayton from more suburban was true. So he just wrote me a nice note and basically extended his help in any way that he could offer and what they've been through with Miami Valley in terms of transitions. As to whatever transitions we decide to make, he was offering help and assistance. So I thought it was
Excellent,
nice
yes.
to get.
Maybe we could contact him or get some kind of.
They're moving to downtown Dayton, and all that you read is easy.
All right, and Derek, we're going to talk to Derek on the phone to give him kind of an overview of what's going on, although I think he's kind of aware. And then Derek is going to we're going to have a meeting after church, 2 weeks, right?
I think it's next week, isn't it?
Next week.
It's June 2nd.
June 2nd. He's going to be here after church, and we're going to start discussing. And then the 6th, he's going to be presenting the message. The 6th.
On the 9th, yes.
The 9th, yeah.
Yes.
So everything is in progress, but this is nothing that's going to move. This is like glacier type stuff. We're good white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Americans. We want to know what's going to happen before it happens.
We're testing the waters.
Yes, we're just dipping our toe in the water to see what's going on, and this is all in connection with, as you can see, with our diminishing attendance and diminishing belonging in the church. We need to figure out what we're going to do, and luckily we have a sister church in El Dorado with an excellent pastor, and they would be more than happy to share with us or to invite us to come. The question is, can we talk them into coming here once in a while so we can take the building open? The problem we're running into is they have air conditioning, we have fans, they have an elevator, we have a ramp. It's kind of, they have all the advantages and we have none of them. The other part of the equation is, we love this building. This building has been here over 100 years, and we don't want to tear it down or see it turned into whatever happens, like a DVD factory or some weird thing like that. So we'll see. Basically, it's in the process. Be aware. Everybody is welcome. You don't have to be on the board. Everything is going to happen one way or another, and we want everybody's input to do it. All right. Any other announcements? This week is Memorial Day is Monday. There's going to be a service today at 2 o'clock from the village in the cemetery. We do that occasionally, but since they're having it with the village, we're going to go ahead and go with the village. We still need to get together sometime and see, is this called the Universalist Cemetery out here?
Yes.
We need to get the history of this and get it written down, and actually go out and look at some of the grave markers. I'll try and do that sometime in the next coming weeks, and I'll put some pictures up and we'll get a little bit of history for that. That's an important part of this church, and since the cemetery is not really being used anymore, it might be something that would be of interest to people. All right, Prelude is going to be...
Oh, we're playing God Bless America.
God Bless America. All right. Oh, also, that's Memorial Day is what we got here. You'll notice in front, I brought my dad was in World War II, a veterinarian taking care of mules at a casino in Italy, where they pulled the material up, and I've got a couple pictures, not of him, but of the idea. But he, like every other veteran, brought back souvenirs. So this is a German souvenir sword that he brought back from Germany. You're welcome to look at that after church. And I had a picture of him in uniform, and I couldn't find it, so that'll be the next time. All right. God bless America. All right. For chalice lighting, we light our chalice this morning, the light of our creative spirits, the light of our wise souls, the light of our wondering and curious minds, the light of love for this place, this people, this work. Illuminate our hearts and the spaces between them in this sacred time of unfolding. Blessed be. Our opening hymn.
Let's do 121.
121.
Of the land. It's kind of a long one, so let's just do 2 verses, I think.
2 verses, okay.
Yeah.
All right, it's going to take me a little time because Kenny's not here to run our camera, so I wanted to bring this up. I tried to quote it from memory and I missed it the other day. So, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Those who prevent history from being taught fully intend to repeat it. A little message to the Ohio legislature and their control of our curriculum with what they're teaching our kids. All right. Our affirmation: we remember and we pray for peace. Each week, we bring our joys and sorrows to this community, that our sorrows may be carried with the support of others, and our joys may be magnified. On this Sunday before Memorial Day, there is one great sorrow we collectively share: the sorrow of those individuals in the armed services who lost their lives in war. Today, we remember them and grieve their loss. We remember those who joined the armed services by choice and those who had no choice. You have to be pretty old to remember that. But the draft, and we've talked about the draft before, we remember those who fought in wars with just cause and those that had no just cause. We remember those who sacrificed their lives for wars they believed in, and those who sacrificed their lives for wars they did not. We remember those who have gone missing and were never found. We remember those civilians who have died as collateral damage in wars. We remember the loved ones the lost have left behind. We pray for world leaders that they make wise choices that prevent wars. We pray for those around the world who are currently suffering the ravages of war. We pray for the peacemakers who strive for the end of many conflicts around the world. We remember, and we pray for peace. Part of what we're doing today is, part of our memorial is, we're going to base it on Richard Venus, one of his stories, and I'm going to try not to read it because I know that's boring. But he is a pretty magnificent writer, and I'm going to read you his biography, his CV. He has done a lot of interesting stuff in his life. You probably know this, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded. And part of what Richard was all about was peace, and one of the stories he wrote was in Palestine, the problems between the Israeli troops and the Palestinian civilians. This book was written in 2011. Let's see, it's called Every Place is a Holy Ground, 2011, and he's talking about the Israeli troops, the way they're treating the Palestinian civilians. So he was way ahead of his time. All right, to start with, though, our children's story is the standard. We'll give you the history of Memorial Day.
What is Memorial Day? Memorial Day is an American holiday that honors the brave men and women who died while serving in the United States military. Did you know Memorial Day used to be called Decoration Day? This holiday was first observed on May 30th, 1868, to honor people who died fighting in the Civil War. 5,000 people gathered at Arlington National Cemetery to decorate the graves of 20,000 soldiers who had been buried there. That began the tradition of decorating graves with flowers, wreaths, and flags. After World War I, people decided to honor soldiers who died during any war rather than just soldiers who died fighting in the Civil War. They did this to make sure that, in spite of the large death toll, every life lost was honored. When is Memorial Day? We observe Memorial Day on the last Monday in May every year. There is one theory that Decoration Day was originally chosen on May 30th to coincide with the time of year when spring flowers are in full bloom. How is Memorial Day commemorated? Memorial Day is a federal holiday, which means that government buildings such as banks, schools, and post offices are closed to give people time to remember the sacrifices people have made to benefit our country. In 2000, President Bill Clinton passed the National Moment of Remembrance Act to encourage Americans to pause for a minute at 3 p.m. on Memorial Day. This is a time to remember the sacrifices of fallen United States servicemen and women. To this day, Memorial Day is still commemorated at the Arlington National Cemetery. At the ceremony, a small American flag is placed on each grave. How can I celebrate Memorial Day at home? Many people observe Memorial Day by gathering with friends and family. Some other popular Memorial Day traditions include attending a Memorial Day parade, write thank you letters to current servicemen and women, place flags or flowers on the graves of soldiers. Maybe you could travel to famous military cemeteries, such as the Gettysburg National Cemetery or the Arlington National Cemetery. Symbols. The American flag plays a special role on Memorial Day. When you see an American flag, check to see where it is placed. The flag should be raised to the top of the flagpole and then slowly lowered to half-staff until 12 p.m. At noon, the flag should be raised again at the top of the flagpole. The action of raising the flag symbolizes rising up and continuing to fight for liberty for all. The red poppy is just one of the flowers linked to Memorial Day celebrations. It originated in 1915 when Moynihan Michael wrote a poem connecting poppies to the soldiers who fought and died for our country. Miss Michael sold poppies to raise money for servicemen in need. The idea quickly spread, and now poppies are sold and distributed all over the world to support those affected by the war. To honor Miss Michael's idea, the United States Post Office made a stamp with her picture on it. Quick quiz. When do we celebrate?
We're not doing the quiz, because you already know the answers. You all know that the flag should never be flown upside down. I don't think we have to reinstate that again. And if you watch the news, you know that's in the news. The other interesting thing is the red poppies. I didn't realize that the woman who came up with that idea was in the United States, and that's where it first originated, because if you go to England, they are poppy mad over there. Everybody wears little paper poppies on their lapels. They celebrate, they honor, they really care for and this started after World War I, when Britain lost a huge number of people, but it continues to this day. The wearing of the poppy is considered almost a thing that everybody has to do. So, let's do joys and concerns. We have our sunflowers for Ukraine. They are being pushed back by the Russians, and if you listen to the quotes of the frontline soldiers and the generals who were talking about it, it is because they lack material. They have a shortage of soldiers, but what they really lack is artillery shells, air defense material, the stuff that the United States was supposed to send to them, but which was held up for 6 or 7 months by our Congress for, I'm not exactly sure what reason, but this has cost lives in the Ukraine. Ukrainian soldiers and Ukrainian civilians have been killed. The latest figure I saw was in the 2 years of the war, 31,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed. Just as a point of interest, in the 6 months or so since the Israeli and Palestinian confrontation, 36,000 Palestinians have been killed, many of those children and many of those women. So death still continues across the world, and we pray for an end of that. Anything else?
Jim, I'd like to share a joy, but I guess a joy in remembrance. You mentioned Poppy Day. Poppy Day is alive and well in New Madison, Ohio. Our American Legion auxiliaries sell those poppies, usually on street corners and around town. And as a child, I remember, and other children as well, of those belonging to the American Legion post right over here, would help their mothers sell poppies, usually a week or a few days before what we still call here Decoration Day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the parade which you will see today if you hang around at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whatever. That parade still goes on today. And just as importantly, that parade originates and people wear poppies and continue to on Decoration Day. As a child, the children were expected to march in the parade, and they carried flowers, spring flowers, peonies, spirea, those kinds of things, which now are blooming a little too early for some reason I won't get into. However, our job as children was to take those flowers at a particular time in the program at Green Mountain Cemetery right over here and lay them on a grave. And we were told you lay them on a grave where there is a flag for it. So just thought I would share that remembrance and as well a joy that continues to be celebrated today.
The value of a small community is people know each other and they know what the community is supporting and doesn't support. And one thing we haven't mentioned yet is my history in Newton Township in Miami County was the Fireman's Barbecue for a fundraiser. I assume there's going to be one of those. It must not be today, but it should be coming up.
They have them periodically.
Yeah.
June 1st.
I think, yeah, June 1st, which is next week, basically. So, and that's another way you can support your local fire department and get and now the new addition is pork chops. I don't know if they're going to do that here. A lot of places are doing chicken or pork chops. And I had a pork chop at Lockington or wherever we knew somebody in the fire department, and that was actually pretty good, a barbecued pork chop. So keep that in mind too. All right. We're going to light a candle for Greenville. Lost a huge number of trees. Luckily, I don't think anybody was hurt in Greenville, but the trucks are still out picking up brush. They're still sawing down trees. The park was specifically hard hit. Lots of trees down in the park, but once they get them cleared out, it doesn't look as bad once the fallen trees are gone. Still are a lot of trees that are missing in Greenville. So. I'm going to light a candle for my homeless girls. The one girl was arrested. I'm not exactly sure what for. Went to jail, had a seizure. Now she's in the hospital at Miami Valley. These people, well, I know part of the reason. She had drugs on her, and so she wouldn't get caught. She swallowed all the drugs, and that caused her health problems. So I bring this up every week, and I light a candle every week, but so far God has not revealed a solution to me. I don't know what to do, and I don't know where to put them and how to get rid of them, or where they can go to find help. They need to have some kind of intervention, and obviously I'm not able to do that. So keep these girls and they're not girls, they're like in their 30s. They're like young women who ought to know better. And I'm in contact with the girl's mother. She doesn't know what to do either, so we're kind of going to puzzle on this together. So a candle for all of those, and a candle for those thoughts, prayers, worries, concerns, joys that you don't feel free to mention, or maybe you haven't really realized that it is a joy yet, or maybe you haven't really realized it is a concern yet. There are lots of people in the hospital, lots of people in nursing homes recovering. We have a candle lit for all of those people, no matter where they are. All right, let's go to Richard Venus. I don't know whether to do, I guess I'll do his history first, and then we'll get into the book. He's a Unitarian Universalist minister with a pretty impressive background. He has a BA from Adrian College in 1961. He got his master's in divinity from Union Theological Seminary in New York. That's no just place down the road. Union Theological Seminary is a pretty impressive place. That was in 1963. In addition, he has a master's degree from Siena Heights College. That's in counseling, and that was in 79. He has a master's in journalism from the University of Michigan, and that's no slouch of a school either. He also has, that's 3 masters. He does not have a doctorate, which is kind of unusual. Most ministers now go on for their doctorate. It raises their pay scale. But as Richard was at Miami Valley UU, and here, our pay scale was minimal anyway, so a doctorate wouldn't have helped him. He had his first parish in 1989 and a full fellowship parish in 1992. From 2005 to 2019, he was here at New Madison, which was pretty incredible. If you were here and listened to Richard, he wrote his book in 2011. He was a very deep thinker, a very sensitive thinker, a very alert and active person. Prior to that, he was at Miami Valley UU Fellowship from 1991 to 2005. He was also a minister at Jackson County, Michigan, and East Liberty, Michigan, in Clark Lake. And he started as a Presbyterian minister in a Detroit inner city church. So he has been everywhere. He has he's walked the walk as well as talked the talk. He's not only a minister, but a journalist. He covered various topics, including cops, cows, and crime. Those are his words. During his journalism career at the Hillsdale Daily News. He served in Detroit's inner city, Ohio suburbs, and rural communities. So he has been everywhere, from the inner city to the suburbs to the rural area, which is here. The kind of irony that we're looking at, and all of us who were here when Richard was finishing his service, Richard is suffering from dementia, which is, the irony is, this is the evaporation of a mind in the person who placed the utmost value on the existence of a mind. It seems a terrible strike against someone who lived, whose entire life was in his mind, and the fruits of his mind, the creation of his writings and his sermons, everything came from his alert awareness of what was going on in the world, and all of that is fading into darkness. There is a book written called Vanishing, Mortality, Dementia, and What It Means to Disappear. Is a hardcover book by Lynn Castile Harper. I didn't have a chance to read the book, but I read the reviews. Our thoughts and prayers, and we'll light a candle for Marcia. That's Richard's wife. I don't know whether it's harder on the person who suffers dementia and disappears and doesn't know what's going on, or harder on the person who has to sit there and watch their partner disappear. They're left with an empty shell, basically. Are we body or are we mind? Who said, "I think, therefore I am"? Rene Descartes, our philosopher in residence, jumped right on that. I think, therefore I am. The connection between the body and the mind is the body, which is what only as a body can a human sense and express itself and encounter other humans in the world. Everything to do with perception, thought, and action is performed through the medium of the body. The eyes see, the ears hear, the hands hold, the tongue speaks, all without our direct awareness. Is the body a transportation device to serve the mind, or is the mind simply a controller for bodily functions? If you don't think, do you still, quote unquote, am? If you can't think, are you still a person? In early dimension, the person is disintegrating, but the social body remains. It greets, it responds, it smiles, it laughs, but with a strained disconnection. You're talking to the person, but you can see the light leaving their eyes. You can tell they don't really understand what you were saying. When you say good morning, they say good morning, but you can tell the difference between good morning and a handshake and good morning in a vacant lot. Is it still the person we knew, or just some animated puppet with a diminished operator? I really wish Richard was still able to give us his thoughts on being unable to think. So, and we add a prayer for Marcia and Richard. And we have their address. If anybody doesn't have it, I'm sure Marcia would appreciate a text or a email once in a while, or even a card. I think we've got a card back there. We might pull a card today after church and have everybody sign it. Okay, the chapter I wanted you to see, and before we do that, let's do this. I tried last week and I lost it. So
What is the
this is something about Palestine and Israel.
Total outrage that there are people who are
That was a border crossing from Egypt into Israel. Those were Israeli settlers, the fundamentalist Zionist Israelis. They are stopping the trucks, destroying the relief supplies for the Palestinians, the women and children who are trapped in Gaza and not able to provide for themselves. They are destroying the supplies to keep them alive. And the police and the soldiers, the Israeli police and Israeli soldiers, are standing by letting them do it. Actually, Richard refers to this as we go along. So what religious terrorists, this is a free path or what? This is from page 55 in his book. And I think we have a copy of the book here if somebody wants to borrow it and read it. What religious terrorists have in common is a view of the world as a site of cosmic struggle in which the forces of evil threaten the forces of good. Their theology evolves in a context of injury or threat. Holy warriors experience themselves as victims of an enemy's unjustified aggression and violence. This was written in 2011. Does it ring any bells now in our current political situation? People who think they are threatened, people who were willing to commit violence on other people to maintain their status in society. Having been humiliated, they are fighting back to restore honor for their people and to pay back injustices. They believe their own deaths will bring glory to their families, will be honored among the people, and will be pleasing to God. Acts of religious terrorism may not defeat the enemy. The acts may not even have a physical or political objective. The meaning of the acts is religious, an act of faithful defiance of evil to declare one's devotion to God. Theirs is a theology that says God saves through violence. This is not a new notice. It is shared by many of the world's major religions and has been a core doctrine of Western Christianity for the past 1,000 years. The First Crusade under Pope Urban II in 1095 urged holy warriors to sacrifice their lives just as Jesus gave his on the cross. The Pope promised that their noble deaths would merit the forgiveness of debts and garner rewards for the slain soldiers' families. Exactly the same thing that is told to Muslim soldiers, Muslim sacrificers now. These promises were based on the formulations of an 11th century theologian, Anselm of Canterbury, who suggested that Jesus died on the cross to pay for the injury to God's honor caused by human sin. To pay for the injury to God's honor caused by human sin. His writings were written to defend Christianity from Muslims and Jews. The Pope's decrees led to the slaughter of thousands of innocent people. This sounds so much like what those who sought revenge by flying airplanes into the World Trade Center, those who blow up buses, hospitals, and schools in the name of Jewish or Muslim rights. They say God is on their side, a God who sanctions the destruction of their enemies and who executes justice through retaliation. Justice through retaliation. Then he goes on to tell this little story of a Palestinian family being visited by an award-winning journalist, and this is in the 2000s. The Palestinian family's house was invaded by Israeli troops looking legitimately for Hamas terrorists, looking for secreted arms, ammunition, explosives. Soldiers searched the house, pulling everything off the walls, out of the closets, dumping everything in piles on the floor. The wood paneling is punched full of holes. Couches were overturned. Bags of grain were emptied into the sink. Broken glass littered the floor. When the soldiers leave, the family begins to clean up while the lady of the house cooks supper. For us, this is normal, she says. The third night, the soldiers return, and this time they are not even polite. They do not even come in and talk to the family and tell them what they're doing. They lock everyone in a room and begin a rampage through the house, ripping paneling off the walls, knocking holes in the tile floor and the concrete underneath. They smash and destroy, then they urinate on the mess they have left behind. The house has been turned into a wrecking yard, and nothing has been found. When the pregnant mother, who is the wife of the house, emerges and sees what has happened, she goes into shock. She is resilient and strong, but this assault has gone beyond normal. She breaks down. Those around her fear she may lose her baby, and they finally convince a soldier who is also a paramedic to take her to the hospital. So the soldiers who caused the damage, and there's good and bad in every group. There's some Israeli soldiers, and you were here when Rick was here, showed you the picture of the soldier pointing his rifle at Rick. And yet there are soldiers who will help out Palestinians who've been hurt. There are soldiers who will not help out Palestinians who've been hurt. There are Israeli Jews who stand with the Palestinians and protest the actions of the Israeli army. There are massive protests in Israel today of people who want the hostages returned and want the bombing and the attacks in Gaza stopped until the hostages are returned. It is not a unified front. Hanan loves you, she writes on a note to the Jew, and this is the journalist. I forgot to mention the Jew who was there. The journalist who was there was also Jewish. That was one of how she got permission to actually go in. What are we to make of a world that offers kindness to strangers while others bring suffering? What are we to make of a world that raises fundamental questions about right and wrong, truth and justice, and largely transforms religious truth into bitter hatred and warfare? Israel claims to be a state governed by the Torah, Palestine governed by the Quran, and some believe the United States should be run by Christian scriptures. We've seen that in the upside down flag, and we've seen that in the lone tree flag, also by the same person. A Christian nationalist movement that says the nation was founded on Christian principles and should be run on Christian principles. Ours is a world where religion at its best, modeled on love, compassion, and generosity, but in reality is often used as a fearful defense against the modern world. In some forms of fundamentalist Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they see spiritual bankruptcy everywhere. This was written in 2011. They see spiritual bankruptcy everywhere, tainted by scientific discovery and technology, and they use violence to get their way. In the midst of this turning of religion's fundamental truth of compassion and love on its head, love embraces the goodness of this world and seeks paradise on earth, a heaven of mutual respect. Love generates life from the first moments of conception of a child to the last moments when love creates a way for those who have died to be remembered with gratitude and tenderness. In the deepest nights, when our hearts are breaking, it is the discovery of a love that chooses unshakable fidelity to our common humanity that renews us and redirects us to a life of generosity. Richard goes on to say he remains in the dark about the ultimate truth of the claims of science and religion, but he has a sense these different ways of understanding are connected. Science is about the natural and material world, and religion about the spiritual world. As one letter to the editor of the New York Times puts it, there is no contradiction between evolution and religion. One explains how, and the other explains why. He quotes Richard Feynman, a Nobel Prize winner, who writes about flowers and said, he'll hold up a flower and say, "Look how beautiful this is," but you as a scientist say, "Oh, take this all apart," and it becomes a dull thing. I think he's kind of nutty. I can appreciate the aesthetic beauty of a flower. At the same time, I see much more about the flower than he sees. I can imagine the cells in there, the complicated actions inside that also have a beauty. It's not just beauty in this dimension, it's beauty in the smaller dimension in the inner structure. All right, religion is not about finding the right theological truth or the ultimate creed by which to live. Religion is about living with love as our guide. Ironically, it is the loving form of these and those religions that is the guide to being whole. Science will discover facts of our existence, but it will not keep Jews from house-wrecking rampages upon the Palestinians, nor will it keep Christians from warring against Muslims. It is the loving form of all of these religions that is the guide to being whole. Comments? That's only a portion of that story, but it gives you a true picture of who Richard Venus was and partially still is. Even when he left here, his memory was fading and he was having trouble keeping up on what was going on. If you were here for his last visit, he shook hands, he smiled, he talked, but Richard, the real Richard, was not there anymore, and we lament that. We lament that for all the people who suffer from dementia of many kinds, but we will not forget these people, and will not forget the work that they have done and the lessons they've taught us. Okay? All right, let's go on. This is a picture of Richard. It's in the back of his book. Like I say, I highly recommend the book. I've done one other one out of this, and I'll probably do more as we go along. I do not want to forget Richard Venus, and I do not want us to forget Richard Venus. Okay. We are time to offering. If you have something to contribute, please do. If you need something, don't hesitate to ask. We are here more for moral support. We are not the church suckers that give out money to anybody that asks for it. And believe me, we get those requests all the time. They parade down the line of all the churches in Darke County. I can't pay my electric bill. I can't pay my food bill. The kids need money for medicine. There are places, government places set up to help these people, and we will direct them to there. We are there for people who, and I guess my two girls are an example, we are there to help people who really need help, but our help is not endless, our help is not mindless, our help is not without qualifications. You have to, in the old white Anglo-Saxon Protestant tradition, you have to earn your keep. Right, what are we going to hear?
This is called God, Eternal Father. Some people call it the Navy Hymn.
The Navy Hymn. I like the Navy Hymn better.
Okay. 159.
159. This is my song. Great. All right, and I forgot to light candles. Patrick's mom is home now.
Yes.
So we're lighting a candle for Patrick and his mom and Margaret for the trials and tribulations they've gone through. And I had somebody else. I'll think of it in a minute. All right. We're never too late to do any of this stuff. Or extinguishing the chalice. May love guide you forward on your journey. Joy meet you at every turn, and hope be your daily practice. May gratitude companion you, compassion embolden you, and open-hearted courage be your unending choice. May peace challenge you, generosity empower you, and may you know in every day that you are enough just exactly as you are. And you are not alone. Blessed be and farewell. You're welcome to take a look at the sword. This has all the imprinting on it. And this is what soldiers used to carry even up to the Civil War and the First World War. Military officers always carried ceremonial swords. They kind of disappeared after World War II. A lot of them disappeared into the hands of souvenir hunters like my dad. This is the 1st Field Artillery Battalion number 50 from Germany, and it has a picture of a Prussian officer riding a horse. So it's kind of an interesting, it's kind of beat up and dirty because as kids we played with it in the attic, played pretend sword fight, which we're lucky we didn't cut each other apart. So there's donuts back there, and coffee, and we don't want to forget horses served up until and even including World War II. Not so many horses, but mostly mules carried the information. This is what the horses suffered when the military was actually fighting. This is a picture of the mule, not my dad's, but a picture of a soldier with a mule going up the mountains in Italy because the tracks were too narrow. They couldn't get jeeps or trucks or anything else. All the ammunition, all the food, all the supplies were all trucked up by mules, and it was a military veterinarian's job to keep the mules healthy. So that's what he did, and he's very proud of it. All right. We're going to call Cecil, and oh, that's right, there was a candle for Cecil, and we'll see how she's doing, and then we'll go on from there. So have a good week, enjoy your Memorial Day celebration, and hope to see you next week. Postlude?
Yeah.
Very nice. We have donuts and coffee?
Yeah,
Coffee steak?
coffee.
Oh, good, good. And this is good coffee, because Paula brings it. If not, we brew our own, which may not be quite as good.
It was, in 399, Eternal Father's Promise Stadium.
Yes.
And my dad was in the military and did the Naval Academy, and they played that in the chapel every week. I know all this.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like it too.
yeah. But yeah, whenever I hear it, I think of the chapel. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big holiday for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I can say the room right here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you showed that horse with that guy shooting behind there.
Yeah.
One of the most,
Yeah.
one of the most moving things I ever saw about horses was in the TV show, All Things Bright and Beautiful.
Yes.
Born in 25. He served in Richmond.
The older veterinarian in the show was in World War I, and his job was a veterinarian